Satnam aloha, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. And I'm going to put up the comments here so I can see that. So be sure to say your name and where you're logging in from if you feel called. And yeah, my intuition was saying to hop on today and talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of the energy. So let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. Oops, wrong one. Getting ahead of myself here. Okay. Oh. Okay. Just bear with me here. There we go. Mystery solved. Okay. So I hope everybody is doing well today. Stay keeping your head above water in terms of the energy. So this is the chart as of today, and I'm going to talk about the 3 stages of awakening for you, and maybe you'll determine what stage you're in, and then we can talk a little bit about the collective too. So this really has to do with Mercury retrograde. Okay, so that's, you'll see the glyph of Mercury, right, with Venus, and it's got the little halo, half a halo on top, and it's in the 8.5, right? So this is the shadow of artificiality. It's the gift of style and uniqueness. And Mercury retrograde is really about getting in touch with what's going on in your mind, like what you're thinking about, because it really starts to periods of time where Mercury is in retrograde. It really gets the mind going, like really spinning, and you may have noticed that yourself. And what's happening is you're becoming aware of all those thoughts that you need to throw off, you need to throw away. Okay, because your thoughts are what are creating your behavior, right? Well, first it goes thoughts, and then it creates your perception of how you're perceiving the world, and then in turn it affects your behavior. So it's really important to know what you're thinking about, you know, and to create that gap, that relationship between you and your mind. And meditation really helps with that. And I talked about the breath last time. Okay, so you want to go back to the Jupiter and Mars video that I did, the live stream according to your sign, and I want to just quickly show people. Okay, copy of me in the Zodiac. Right, so if you go to my channel, you can see my channel there, and then click on that. Okay, anyway, you click on that. There we go. Oh my God, I'm in the funhouse mirrors here. Okay, there we go. If you go there, right? And this comment is always pinned on top, everybody. And then you just pick your sign. So you get your ascendant, and then your that's your rising sign, and then your moon sign, and then your sun sign. And you just click there, and it takes you right to your part. So you don't have to watch the whole 3-hour thing, the whole 3-hour episode. And then go to the ones here at the top, right? You can, and this is like the collective read, and then important stories that you need to listen to, and then the takeaway. So that's a really quick way to do it, right? And then you're only investing 10 or 15 minutes, and then you can really zone in and focus on the energies, right? How the energies are affecting you and how to work with them. Okay, I wanted to show people that. Okay. So let's do the chart again. My glasses are fogging up, so I have to not wear them for a while. I had a really hot bath. Okay. Me and Zodiac. There we go. Okay, so that's the chart. So you can see the little heart sign. And I've actually done, I've been talking about this 8 a lot, because this is very special to me because it is in my sun position, this 8. So I know the shadow of artificiality very, very well. And then the gift of uniqueness and style, right? So, so Mercury retrograde is really showing us those thoughts that aren't aligned with our authentic self, right? Remember the Aquarian age, it's all about becoming your authentic self. There's no negotiating anymore. Everything that's being ripped from your life, losses that you're experiencing, hardships, challenges, it's all forcing you to become yourself, your true self. And that can be a scary thing for people that haven't been themselves, right? This is all about conditioning, the shadow of artificiality. It's all about our conditioning, our social conditioning. From our parents, our extended family, our siblings, our educational system, our culture, our religion, our nationality even, that conditions us too. Right? We're told what to think, when to think, right? Who to hate, who not to hate. We're taught all of that stuff. So I just want to, so I keep my focus here. Okay. So we want to get rid of all the thoughts that are alien to us. So you want to watch the thoughts that are coming up and don't identify with them. Right? So thoughts are like clothes, right? Some clothes you put on and they don't fit you anymore. We used to love them before, but now they just don't fit. They're either too tight or they're too baggy, or you don't like the style or the color or the texture, right? I even remember this with myself. This is so connected to the 8, was when I stopped wearing my turban, right? Just one day, my being, not my personality or my ego, but my being, my internal being rejected it. It felt like I was putting sandpaper on my head. And I used to love wearing that thing, right? Logically, it made no sense. But when you're feeling this, when your strong feelings are coming up, you've got to listen, right? It's showing you that we have to let go of things, right? That these things, these old identities and old ways of being, they have to go, right? Sometimes they just have to go. They have an expiry date. Right? We're changeable, we're mutable, we're evolving at a very deep, deep level, right? As a humanity, you know, and I just had a friend of mine talking to me the other day, and she said, I don't like my clothes anymore. I just want to throw everything away. And she was saying, it's so strange that I feel that way now. Well, it's a reflection, I said to her, of the inner changes that we're all going through, you're going through. It's just a symbol of that, that's all. So maybe you feel the same about in your life, right? Maybe it's the little things about your clothes or your furniture or where you're living or your relationships even, your job, your career. Something is going, and this is the shamanic death that we're all going through, right? This is the phoenix rising from the ashes of your life. This is the new you being birthed. And in yogic teachings, it's called Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti, die before dying. Liberate it while still alive. Right? So it's just about like feeling the energy of things dropping away, let them drop away because a new you is being born. So that's what this 8th gift is all about, you know? So even with me, I mean, I feel like I'm heading for my 5th incarnation in this lifetime, right? Because I've reinvented myself so many times in this lifetime. Put on so many different costumes, tried on so many different identities. Yet my true identity, even when those fell away, it always remained the same, right? And that's the soul, right? The eternal soul that never was born and never will die. So let's talk about the 3 stages here of awakening. So that's the whole purpose now, right? As we transition into this great age of Aquarius, is we are awakening. Right? We're awakening out of the dream We're coming out of a deep, deep sleep that we've been in for thousands of years, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We're all waking up. So watch that Dark Night of the Soul video I did too, if you haven't watched that already, because that will give you some kind of signs that's an alarm clock for our awakening, right? So what you can expect, and maybe you're experiencing that right now, this Dark Night of the Soul. So let's go to the 3 stages here. So I love this image. I love images. They can express so much more than words can. So this comes from the Osho Zen deck again. It's the they call it the 10 of clouds, but that's the 10 of swords. So if you know the tarot, that's the man on the ground, back up with 10 swords on his back. So that's about a completion stage, a painful completion stage. So this is the rebirth card, in Osho Zen, just so you know. And I love the images. The artist is amazing. Okay, so these are the 3 stages, and they relate to this 8th gate, right? The shadow of artificiality, and then the gift of style and uniqueness. So it's a camel, but I put the NPC, the non-playing character, right, from video games. They don't really play a part at all in the video game, right? And that's where most of the planet is, or coming out of, right? So this is just being content, right? Content in your life with the bread and circus, right? Being entertained, having your little, it's living by the senses, right? The 5 senses. Dull, right? Content with superficiality, superficial relationships, right? Not really going deep at all, very shallow, right? And very distracted. So distracted by mainstream news, told what to think, how to think, what to say. If somebody has a different opinion than you, right? Rather than discuss or debate, right? Just slur a derogatory claim. You see that all the time, right? There's no debate. There's no discussion. It's just they hurl some character assassination at someone, right? So and there's this great thing that I don't know, I can't remember this comedian, but she was making a really good point about what happens when you don't agree with somebody says something that you don't agree with, right? An opinion. So she was like taking it to the extreme, right? Do these genes make me feel, do you think these genes make me look like I'm right wing, right? Right. So it's the same kind of thing there, right? So that's the contentment. This is just living by the 5 senses, right? And just being content, and then poo-pooing anybody that challenges that limited perception of the world and what the world is. Well, it's just material, it's solid. Anything that goes against that is like, you're crazy, right? So this is another thing what the mind does. The mind can get very entrenched in its belief system and what it believes. And if it's challenged, what the mind does when it's challenged by something, where it's challenging the belief system, is it will turn it back and say, you're crazy, right? You're insane. The mind won't even let it in. And we see that all the time happening. So this is what the NPC people do, right? They won't even let it in. They won't even consider it because they don't want to move, right? This is very Catholic, like just unmovable, solid in their position. And then the awakening starts. So that's the first stage, right? And then the second stage is the lion stage. And that's when I feel like more and more people are coming into the second stage of the lion. And this is the roaring lion, right, that comes out of the NPC. And the lion is Leo, right? The individual starts to individuate. And the lion starts to get angry about how it's been living, right? Starts to get angry and blaming others, right? I can't believe that I put up with that for so long, that relationship or that job, right? You start to see how little self-value you had. It makes you angry, right? It makes you very, very angry. You start getting angry at the government, right? Of your boss. You start getting angry at your parents for your upbringing, right? It's just like hurling anger all over the place, but really you're angry at yourself. So the other flip side of that is you start to get depressed. Remember I talked about depression? You start to get depressed, and that's anger turned inward, right? So the NPC person, they're all about their addictions, right? If they feel that awakening start to stir up in them, they'll go even more, like they'll double down on their addictions, but the addictions aren't going to work anymore. Not with the frequency of the planet changing like it is, It's not going to work anymore. You're not going to hold back those emotions. So what makes us into the lion is our soul. Our soul starts to wake up, right? It's time to wakey, wake up. And then it starts coming in, taking over your life. And that's when we experience the dark night of the soul. That sleeping giant starts to stomp around, right? And starts creating messes in your life to wake you up. That's the whole point, is to wake you up. So it's just a stage. And I'm not saying the lion stage is a bad thing. It's a necessary thing to go through that, to get angry. I think that's a healthy thing, because that's the energy starting to move. But you don't want to live there, right? You don't want to stay there in the lion stage. And then the third stage that comes out of this lion stage, and this is the emotional body waking up too, right? With the lion stage, because you start to feel your emotions. A lot of people don't like to meditate, right? A lot of people don't like to meditate. A lot of people don't like to breathe deeply. Because why? Because they start to feel what's already in there, right? They start to feel their emotions. And that can be a scary thing if you repressed it for years and years, And that's why the smoking and the pot smoking and all that's to keep all that down, right? Because that's how we're evolving through the emotional body right now. And then the third stage, that's our innocence, right? So that's the little divine child coming through, right? Out of the lion. And the innocence is back to our original self. It's like we're born and we're this beautiful crystal glass, and then we got these fingerprints put all over us. We're told who we are by our parents, right? We're told what our abilities are by our teachers and our limitations and how we should behave. All those fingerprints get on us, and they're not us, right? So the spiritual journey is really about undoing that, like wiping all that clean, so that you can be that crystal glass again. You can be your original self again. Right? And that's that divine child that comes out of that. That's the innocence. So it's not like you got to create the innocence. It's already there inside you. You just have to wipe all the other stuff away that's not you. And this is what we're in, this period right now. Is this, and I'm sure you watching, you're going through that wiping away stage, So let's go to the evolutionary process. Right? So there we go with the this right here. So we're evolving. This is the chart, the human design chart, from a physical awareness. That's the splenic awareness system. That's the MPC, right? It's all about the five senses, right? That's all I see. That's how I get everything's frequency. I mean, we live in our earth plane is all frequency. That's what's real. That's what we're coming into, is frequency again. But then the senses interpret that, right? So some people just stay at the sense level, the five senses. And if it goes any deeper or beyond that, it's not, right? They stay stuck there in this physical awareness. Materialists, right? Materialists. I don't believe in anything other than what I can see and prove, This is just one lifetime and then that's it. I can't imagine living like that. I'm sure I did in past lives, but it's very limiting, very sad too. So we're going from that, the first stage of awakening, right, out of that, into this mental awareness system. And this is the lion, right? So anger is very connected to the mind, right? So the physical, So the mental awareness system is very connected to the mind. And I talked about this in other videos, that often anger is just a story that our mind tells us. So we want to go to, if you've got an angry, if you battle with anger yourself, you know, like you're starting to feel angry these days, it's like go into the mind and what stories are you telling yourself, right? This has to do with the mind. This is the lion. And they're just stories, right? So instead of going into the story, is to really just feel the anger, right? Feel the anger instead of going into the story, because the ego and the mind want to create a story about why you're angry, and then you start to believe it. And it's always about pointing to somebody else, right? Blaming somebody else. Blaming your circumstances and your experience on someone else, right? So it's about the mind. If you let go of the story, because the story is actually what's part of what's keeping that anger down, right? That anger down and suppressed and repressed. Let go of the story. You just go to like, oh, I feel angry, right? I feel angry right now. That's enough. You don't need to make up any stories about it or blame other people while you're angry. The anger's already inside you, right? It's already there. It was there before you met that person that you're blaming it on. Like it was well before that. It was well before that relationship you had, right? That relationship helped bring out that anger in you. That's all. They're messengers, right? So you want to stay with the emotional content. So this is the stage that we're in right now, is we're experiencing life through our mind. And that's why it's all about duality. Everything that you see out there is just a reflection of your mind. That's all it is. And we're moving out of that, and this is the mind breaking down, right? This is dismantling of the mind, dismantling of the ego. And then we're coming into this new awareness system, but we got to go into the emotions first. This is the solar plexus. And look what we're faced with, right? That's why people don't want to do this work, because they got to take care of this, their little inner child. This is 0 to 7 years old. This is 14 to 21, right? All that anger in the angry stories that you tell yourself, they go back to when you were a teenager. What belief systems did you start to create when you were a teenager? Right? People are this, people are that, the world is this, the world is that. Those are entrenched, right? Back to you as a teenager when your mental body started developing, right? Do you see it? It's all about going back to the past and cleaning it up. Not living there, but just doing the cleanup. Going to the source. If you want to get rid of weeds, you go right to the root, get rid of the weeds, you know? So that's 8 to 14 or 14 to 21. 8 to 14 mental awareness. And then 0 to 7 is the emotional awareness, and this is the inner child. And no one can do this for you, right? This work for you. That inner child, you'll try to hurl your inner child in someone else, right? Like a friend or your partner. Right here, you take care of my inner child, but your inner child doesn't want it from anyone else. Your inner child wants the nurturing from you and the attention from you. And you have to give your inner child what she didn't get when she was 0 to 7 years old. It's you that she wants, right? That's the only one she's going to listen to. And the way the inner child, it's like an entity. It's an energetic within you. The inner child never grows up. Right? So the inner child sees you as the parent, right? That's how the inner child views you, like the adult you are now. You're the parent. So that inner child's watching you, right? Oh, look, my parent, you, is saying yes when you really mean no, or saying no when you really mean yes, throwing me in the closet, not listening to me, crying, right? Having a cigarette or going into some addiction, you know? And the inner child doesn't trust you. And if your inner child doesn't trust you, they can wreak havoc in your life because they're so creative, right? They can manifest. They'll manifest things so that they can get your attention, right? In your outer life. That's how powerful your inner child is. So this is the way in, right? This emotional awareness, this is the emotional purification that we're doing. And all it takes is to stop. Like stop. stop being busy and running and reaching and trying to control everything on the external, and stop. That's all you have to do is stop and breathe and feel, right? Just feel, like, just close your eyes and do long, deep breathing and saying, I'm not going to move from this chair into some busy distraction. I'm just going to stay and I'm going to feel, right? And then your inner child's going to start to trust you more. It's like, oh, she's serious now. She's stopping. She wants to connect with me, right? And then you build that trust with your inner child. That means listening to your emotional self. Like, it's that easy to listen to your emotions. Not be up here in the head, right? With the lion roaring and depression and angry and blaming everybody, right? Keeping you distracted out of the present moment. The present moment is through this emotional awareness system, right? So once this starts getting cleared and purified, and it's not an impossible feat, you know, I've done a lot of emotional work myself. I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I'm done completely, but it gets better and better and better, and you feel better, right? Life becomes more magical and joyous. You're more compassionate, you know, life gets better and better, and your spiritual power starts to increase too, right? By doing this, and your awareness, you have that spaciousness inside you, right? You're more at peace. You're more at peace, right? So we go through that emotional awareness, and then this is the solar plexus mutation. So this is what the solar flares are all about. You know, all this solar activity. The ancients warned us about this, and that's awakening this emotional body, right? Our emotional memories, right? The electromagnetic field of the earth holds our memories in place, right? And then there's the solar flares penetrating that electromagnetic field of the earth, and it's awakening, right? It's penetrating our aura too, because we're such Mother Earth is our mother. So it's penetrating our aura and then stirring up our emotional body, right? So that gets purified. And then this new solar plexus mutation that's happening. And this brings us into spirit awareness. And that's how the innocent child comes through, right? It's bringing us back into frequency. This is the origins of everything, right? So this is a very exciting time, but we got to go. There's no other way to get through except these emotions. And people want to avoid these like the plague, right? Their emotional self. There's no way of getting around it. We try to do spirituality up here, right? Talking about it, talking about the emotions, talking about healing, right? All this does is re-traumatize the child, the inner child. That's what I see therapy as. Like when you're doing talk therapy, you're just re-traumatizing the child because you're not feeling, you're not going to the root, right? It can be very damaging. That's why, I don't know, I haven't seen many people that have benefited entirely from, talk therapy. It serves the purpose, but not to get to the root of it, right? So this is what you want to embrace, these 3 stages to get to here, spirit awareness. And that's your divine child. This is the manifester. This is what's manifesting. This is the magic, the divine child. But the wounded child has to get out of the way first. And that means you got to give it attention and nurturing, right? And give it what it didn't receive when you were a little child, a little one. And your inner child will let you know what she wants and needs, but you have to be patient. That's what I had to learn with my inner child, is patience, right? Because I wasn't given that as a child. I had to give that to myself. Okay, so let's look at the comments. What do we got here? Put my things on again. Okay, Robert. Oh, Jamie, welcome. This is your first live. I'm from Westport, Washington, right? And Karen, of course, from New York. And 13 World Bridger, Robert. And mine's yellow overtone star. I'm a galactic activation portal. Please enter me. I forgot that I'm a gap too with that. Can we tune in first? Let me meditate on that, Karen, if I'm going to be doing that. I mean, I'm not teaching Kundalini Yoga, right? I'm just talking. Let me meditate on that. Gemini from Missouri. Is that Missouri or Montana? Missouri, MO. This work has really been helping me lately. Thank you. Many blessings. Hello from Connecticut, USA. Satnam Joanne Sansa. I was in a relationship with a materialist. It was really soul-sucking for me. Yeah. So remember, our relationships are mirrors for us, you know? So there can be a fear there, especially as spiritual people. If you're with somebody who's your equal, your spiritual equal, that can be scary because there's no hiding. There's no hiding when you have somebody that's your equal, your spiritual equal, right? That's the beauty of the relationship, the conscious relationships, is they keep you on your game, you know? That it's like they can say, you know, Sansa, what's going on with you today? You seem to be spending a lot of time on Netflix, right? What's happening, right? Just to remind you of that. Yeah. And this is the thing, right? If we're in unhealthy relationships, they're going to become more and more painful. It's going to be more and more painful to stay than to go, right? Than to leave. The pain to stay is going to be far greater than the pain to go. That's what we're working with right now. It's how humans work. When it's like it's more painful to stay than to go, then you're going to go, right? It's working with our animal self. Remember, we have 3 parts. We've got the animal and the human and the angel part. So we've got to work with our animal self. And our animal self doesn't want to change, right? It wants to be comfortable. And then sing Miracle, Satnam, and Queensland, Australia. Welcome. Okay, so let's do cards. 2 cards since we're on here for the ego. Yeah. We want to be with our spiritual equal. Because then we always have an excuse, right? It's that kind of codependent relationship. Well, it's him. He's the materialist. He's the addict. He's the one that's all screwed up, right? It's me. I got it all together. And it's a total way of avoiding your own pain, right? Your own stuff. Remember, it's the shadow of constriction. We project our pain onto another people. Yeah. Oh, Adi Shakti is a white self-existing wizard. That's good too. From Oz. Awesome. Okay, so let's do some ego cards. Just for now. So how do you know when you're being authentic? How do you know when you're in your authentic self? Right? That's a good question. That's a question that I asked myself before. And how you know is you start to feel things. You start to feel things when you're in your authentic self. Your heart starts to open. That's how you know you're being real, is you start to feel things. You start to feel for people, not just select special people, but people. You start to feel more, become more sensitive. The heart opening is a big one, because if you're not being your authentic self, you're in your head. You're in your head if you're not being your authentic self, because you're in a script, right? Remember these self-concepts, they get created in childhood when you're told who you are, right? When your mother's telling you, I like this about you, and in her indirect way, I like this about you, I don't like this about you. And what I don't like about you could be your authentic self, and you bury it and you suppress it. And then this other personality takes over, and that's the fragment, right? And then the fragment, you continue to breathe life into, believe it's you, follows you into adulthood. You start to get angry, especially during this time, because we have to be in truth. For not being our authentic self, it's being ripped away from us, right? So that's how you know. It's like, oh, I'm totally in my mind. It's like, what do I think that person wants? Or you catch yourself in these patterns, these emotional patterns. Well, I have to be like this because my mother wanted me to be like this, you know? So what we do is when we get to the emotional awareness, that little child is so upset and so sad because her mother didn't love her for who she is, who she truly is. That's that fragment that your authentic self, you kind of threw in the closet and locked the door on, right? And then this fragment, this false self takes over, right? That's not you. So this is the work, is going back and opening up those closet doors and saying, come back in, right? So that can be very emotional. That's how you know you're being your authentic self, when you start to really feel, right? Feel deeply. Yeah. In your life and in your relationships. What do you mean by inner peace? Yeah. Yeah, inner peace eventually comes, right? But peace is right. It's either you want to live your life in pieces, fragments, or you want to live your life in peace. And that's bringing all those recovering, right? The spiritual journey is really about a recovery project. You're recovering all these parts of yourself that you denied, right? That are already inside you, that you've denied and neglected yourself into your adult. I mean, that's what my spiritual journey has been about. It's not been about learning about metaphysics and stuff. That's all those are things that are already in you. You just remember that. You'll just start remembering things. The real work is this emotional work right now. So Susan says admitting things is the first step. Yeah, that there's something that needs to be healed, right? And healing comes from the root word wholeness. But doing something about it is the hard part. Yeah. Well, the doing is really about feeling and accepting, right? Accepting yourself. And doing is about the masculine, right? The masculine energy. And the masculine is been what I see with the masculine energy on the planet. And it has been for the last couple thousand years, because we've lived in a patriarchy. It's been disconnected from the yin. The yang's been disconnected from the yin. The masculine's been disconnected from the feminine. And how energy works correctly is that the yang has to respond to the yin. This isn't about sex. It's not about male biology and female biology. This is energy. We both. Because there can be more, a man can be more yin in his energy than yang. Like I feel like I'm more of a yin male, right? And then women can be more yang. Often you see yang women, and it doesn't mean that they're masculine looking. They can be very feminine looking, but they have a yang, more of a yang energy. They're always attracted to yin men. And the man can look very, very masculine, but be yin, right? It doesn't mean they're weak. Do you see how energy works? But yang has to respond to yin. That's the correct energy, right? So you're doing, because that's what the masculine energy is doing. It responds to the yin. It's got to come from deep inside the feminine first for it to be correct. It can't be running a rickshaw over everything without connected to the yin. And this is what we've been seeing on the planet, right? If you're in alignment. Yeah. Yeah. But it takes, right? You got to swim across the moat, through the alligators to get to the peace first. A lot of people, that's a tricky thing, Jamie, because it's like, well, if I'm not in peace, I'm not in alignment. But you get into alignment, and then what's not in alignment comes up, right? And that's for you to process. Remember, we're evolving through our emotional body. So all those neglected emotions just have to be processed. And then the peace comes, right? The peace will come after that, after the big emotional release, right after the big cry. Then the peace comes, and that's the spaciousness, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about then, Jamie. So let's see what the ego is telling the people that are listening and that will listen in the future about this 8, about being their authentic self. That's what Mercury is showing us right now. Okay. What's the ego telling people? What's the ego telling people? God, what's the ego telling people? Oh, this is interesting. Guilt. You see that? Guilt. Guilt. So it's a picture of a person with their head against the brick wall and their hands behind their back. This is one of the 5 or the 6 primal wounds. So in your chart, if you're on conscious Mars on the red side, right, with the 0 and the arrow pointing up, if you've got a 5, if you got a 0.5 there, that means that you're here to deal with guilt in this lifetime. You're here to transmute guilt. And the medicine is forgiveness. So this is about making a mistake. What the ego does, you make a mistake. This is conditioned guilt, right? So this is the bad guilt. There's the natural healthy guilt, which is like, it's kind of our little signal that we need a correction. It's coming from our soul. Natural guilt is like, oh, when you start to replay a conversation you've had with somebody and I wasn't in my heart with that person, right? I was a little bit cruel and overstepped her boundaries, right? That's the natural guilt, and that's just showing you like, okay, what can you do to correct this? Right? And maybe it's like, oh, I need to just get on the phone and talk to her and say, I'm really sorry about what I thought about what our conversation, and I don't feel good about it. I wasn't in my heart. And then you let it go, right? And then you forgive yourself for that too, that you made a mistake. This is something entirely different, right? This is the ego taking a mistake. Because really the natural guilt is like, I'm a human and I make mistakes, but I'm going to take accountability. I'm going to take responsibility for it, right? And tell someone that I'm sorry. But this is, so it's kind of separate from you as an identity. Do you see what I mean? It's like my behavior was off and I corrected it. But this is like the ego is telling you that your identity, you need to be punished. This is like beyond your behavior. Right? This kind of guilt. This is making a mistake, right? You make a mistake and then the ego like blows this thing out of proportion, and then it stops you from moving forward on your soul's journey because you're just racked with guilt. Do you know what I mean? Like you're just racked with guilt. Well, I can't do that because I'm such a horrible person, right? And then the ego's right there, right? With like, well, you did this and you did that. This can be like the dark night of the soul too, is when you're reflecting on your life, and then you start with one, right? One thing, and then the ego is coming in with all the other things that you've done wrong, right? All the other mistakes you made, reminding you. So this is like holding you back, right? Because this can really make you paralyzed when you're just completely covered in guilt, right? So the medicine for guilt is forgiveness. Forgiveness. This is also projecting your guilt too, right? So you can feel guilty yourself. The ego is like keeping you trapped in your guilt cycle, keeping you hidden away, right? Away from your soul purpose. But then you can project this too. Project your guilt on other people. Right? And you often see that too. A lot of people try to project their guilt. It's like they've got this this is like the natural guilt. They've got this big bag of garbage and they're trying to like throw it on someone else. Narcissists do this, right? They won't take accountability whatsoever, and they'll try to give you their bag of garbage too. Here, and then say, you're crazy, that's your garbage. What are you talking about? It's not my garbage, right? So this is the projection of guilt. Can happen too. And it's all about punishment. The ego wants punishment. It wants other people to be punished, and it wants you to punish yourself, right? This is what can make you punish yourself. Make yourself isolate. Well, I'm going to isolate. I feel so guilty. I can't be around other people, right? Because I just create chaos in all my relationships. I'm not going to start another relationship again, right? Because I feel so guilty. I'm just going to hide away. It's all right. The ego wants punishment. It's all about punishment. You can see our whole system, our whole society is built on this, the ego's version of what guilt is and punishment. Okay, so let's see what the gift is. Oh, thank you, Sing Miracles. I don't know how that works. Super chat. So what's the gift? Thank the divine, because today I didn't want to come on. My mind was like, I just want to chill. I don't want to do anything. But then my intuition was like, no, you need to get on. So that's what I obeyed. And I said, okay, if I'm going on, then you need to provide me with some inspiration here, because I'm not feeling it. And they came. So that's the thing, right? That's what the universe wants from us right now. That's what life wants from us, is to show up. It's just to show up. Show up in your life as your authentic self. That you don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up. I'm here. I'm available. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Whatever state I'm in, right? But you're there authentic and you're real. Okay, so what's underneath the guilt? What's underneath the guilt? What's underneath the guilt? Oh, that's nice. Oh, so this is interesting just because we've been talking about the inner child. So this is the grace card. Grace. And this is the gift, right? This is the gift from the divine, is grace. And grace is everywhere. The ego won't let us see this, though, right? The power of grace. And how we activate this is our authentic self. And then we activate grace. We've got no power when we're being artificial. And that NPC, I'm just going to be an audience member this lifetime. Everybody else can be up on the stage, but not me. And that doesn't mean getting tons and tons of attention. That's like a metaphor for showing up in your life, right? And this is the time there's going to be people that choose that shadow of artificiality and be the NPC, be the audience member, right? But what it is when you're an NPC, non-playing character, is you got no power. So it's like you've got this power cord, and you're trying to plug it in somewhere because you're not plugged into your source, right? You're not plugged into the divine. So you're trying to plug into other people, right? That's what NPC people, they got to get their power somewhere, but they don't realize that their power is their own divinity, right? Connected to their own divinity. So this is when you're plugged in, when you got your power cord plugged in, and that means being your authentic self, right? Who you truly are, your original self, right? When you let go, you're like wiping all those dirty fingerprints off your glass, and then you're who you are, and you accept yourself 100%. Then you have access to grace, and you start to see it, right? This is very humbling, right? This power. And so she's got 2 little babies. So this is like it's connected to doing your inner child work, is to be able to access that power of grace. Have you ever had that experience with grace? I remember Carolyn Mace. I was listening to Carolyn Mace, the medical intuitive. She's hilarious, from Chicago. She was talking about this woman. I'm just thinking of the story now. This woman, and she was in there was a traffic jam on the highway. And all of a sudden she could, no, here it goes. She saw the ambulance lights up in front, and she immediately went into prayer, right? Started praying for the people that were hurt in the accident, you know, so praying for their well-being and their health. Then she went home, and about a couple months later, this woman rings her doorbell, and she said, do you remember 3 months ago there was an accident on the highway? And she's like, vaguely remembers, yeah. She said, well, I left my body. I was the person in that car, one of the people in that car, and I left my body. And I could hear people, right? Their thoughts. And some people were like, this is crazy, and I'm late, and like blaming, right? The police, and like no compassion whatsoever, right? Just complaining and resisting, you know how people are. So she could hear all their thoughts. And then she said, I got like halfway down and I heard your prayer. She said, you were the only one praying for me. So she remembered her license plate number, and that's how she found her. And she said, I just want to thank you because your prayers helped me, right? So this is the power of grace, right? That's the power of grace. There's grace at work, right? And all it takes is a prayer from the heart, right? And that's being your authentic self. Do you think that woman was trying to be someone she's not? Nobody was in the car with her giving her kudos because she's praying. There was nobody in the car with her. There was just her and God, right? That's being your authentic self. And this is what we have to remember. Like, this is our true nature as humanity. We've gone so far from our true nature, so far from our hearts. It's not natural, even though the ego will say, well, of course it is, because most of the world are like this. It's not natural. It's not who we are, right? So you want to access this power of grace by forgiving yourself, right? This is forgiving yourself and forgiving everybody, right? And letting this guilt go. I made a mistake. The other people, they made mistakes. They could have been horrific mistakes, but they're mistakes nonetheless. And to see through the veil that we're all of light, each one of us, right? No matter what we're showing. Don't get fooled with the Maya. Don't believe what you think, right? Like, don't believe what you see with your two eyes. So this is what we want to get to, right? Like, I think of Gandhi, the story of Gandhi, when he got shot. Remember, he got shot, he got assassinated. The last thing out of his mouth was, I forgive you. Because he didn't want to be trapped in the karmic cycle with that person over and over and over again. Right? So you can imagine having that state of consciousness is, I forgive you. And this is in yogic teachings, there's a thing called the Pran Sutra. The Pran Sutra. And that's something you want on your mouth, on your lips. So you're not cussing. When somebody cuts you off, you don't want your last words to be F you a-hole, or whatever. So you want to pick a mantra, like Mind's Agure Name, Jagagure Name, right? I repeat that. I do it unconscious sometimes. It will just come out of my mouth. If I feel just a little tiny bit of fear, it's a mantra of protection, right? It protects me. I say it before I go driving in the car, right? It gives me 9 feet of space, 9 seconds of time. And then I can relax. I'm being protected by the energy, right? The energetic of it. So just pick something like Sat Nam or Namaste or something, and just start make it a habit that's coming out of your mouth, not cussing, right? And that's the power of grace. Yeah, so forgiveness. That's a big theme. Okay. So let's see here. Let's read a couple comments. Okay. Thank you, Brandy. She says, thank you for showing up. So appreciate it. Thank you, Michael. I really need to hear this. I'm so glad you followed your intuition. Yeah. It's true, Joanna? So she says her husband's very intuitive in my yin. To not get hung up on that, you know? Because everything's switching around. In the prophecy, I don't know if this is true or not. I have to really go deeper in this. That we're having the return of the divine feminine, but it's actually coming through the male form, the divine feminine, which is really interesting because men are becoming more nurturing. I'm seeing more and more yin men like myself, right, that are very taking more of a role in parenting, like fathering, stay-at-home fathers and things like that. Yeah. Okay. I know, isn't that a beautiful story? I just remembered that right now. That's the power of grace right there, that I remember that story. That was like years ago I heard that one, but it always stuck with me. Singh says, I have the hardest time forgiving my mistakes and have an easier time forgiving others. Yeah, we often do that, right? That's a self-worth issue, right? That you are worthy of forgiveness too. And this is the ego, right? The ego will keep you from forgiving yourself. And the thing is, we can't really forgive others until we forgive ourselves, right? So remember, when you honestly forgive yourself and then you forgive another, you're releasing them. You're not only releasing yourself, but you're releasing them too, you know, from this tie that bonds you. It's like this negative bond that's holding you together. Okay. Yeah, don't be doing that, my island. Yeah, just retrain your mind, right? Our words have power. And hate. You know that Emoto, the one that did the water, the famous water experiment, and under the microscope, chanted the word hate in the water and then love, and how different they were. The hate one was all dark and sinister looking, right? And that's whatever you put out is going to come back to you. So you don't want to, that's a strong word, right? Hate. What a beautiful story. It reminds me of recent thought I had about nature and how giving nature is so lovingly always providing food, shelter. Yeah. Did you ever read the Ringing Cedar series about Anastasia? She talked about that, about how generous, even here, right? There's an abundance of food being grown all the time, and there it is. It's here to serve us, right? These nature is here to serve humanity. For years, and I appreciate you, Jay. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Before, thank you for the reminder, Michael. Okay, so that's what I wanted to. It's already an hour has passed. I wanted to come on and say is to really make that commitment to be yourself. And one of the biggest fears of when we really start to move towards being ourselves, and the pressure is going to get stronger and stronger, right, as we go more and more into the Aquarian age, that you'll get to the point where it's like, I cannot not be myself. The pressure will be so great, right, that you want to do it before then. And one of our biggest fears is not being accepted or loved, right, being rejected for who we are. And why we're afraid of that is because it brings up that inner child wound, right? When we weren't accepted and loved for who we are. That's all it is. So you just have to face that, right? You've got to go in and face it. The thing is that the other people are just a reflection of what's going on for you. So whatever you're telling yourself, they're going to be parroting it to you, right? They become almost a voice of your subconscious in a sense, right? So the deal with that yourself. It's like, what am I so afraid of? Well, I'm going to face it inside myself, right? All the battles going on inside you, right? So that's one of the biggest fears with being our authentic self, is that we'll be rejected. But, you know, man's rejection, woman's rejection is God's protection, right? It's just making room for the people that are more aligned with you, right? In your authenticity. Okay? Okay, so have a great day, evening, wherever you are, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Probably maybe Thursday, but I'm listening to my intuition. Okay? So take care. Bye-bye.